TJ's favorite topic time, a little conference realignment talk. TJ, the Big 12 Media Days was last week, and Yormark was all over the place talking. He was asked about potentially adding like a bridge school or a partner for BYU out west, and essentially, TJ, he shot that down. So I know he said previously the coast to coast, adding a fourth time zone. He's talked about teams being intentional, which we felt like was a shot at the Pac-12 teams that are kind of standing at the doorway waiting. Does that change kind of your thoughts or what you're thinking may happen, that he's effectively said on the board right now, there is nothing. Let's see what the quote was. Nothing on the Western front in terms of potential expansion. There's nothing there on the board right now.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I've always thought it was going to be Colorado, Arizona. I think those are the schools that have been talking about it the most. They've been flirting with it the most. Colorado seems unanimously as an option. It really is. Arizona going to bite? Are they going to have to pull in another team? Like, is there a dark horse in this whole conversation that perhaps we're not talking about? Someone in the pack that's like, you know what, I want out of here. This is trash. Please get me out of here. Like this Gliakov has not given any type of vote of confidence to anyone in that conference at this point. So I could see another team making the jump. I'm still going to stick with Arizona and Colorado. But he did kind of say some things that I think you were the one that sent it to me that kind of made it seem like there was some hope out there for Memphis, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's said a couple of things. We talked about him last week. You had that the check boxes, around cultural fit, brand, intentional, wanting to be a part. So we'll see. The other side, the other coast of this, a team that's been mentioned a lot today, the New Haven Register came out and said that U.S. Senator Chris Murphy made a statement to UConn and asked them to stay in the Big East. That's where they belong. He went to law school at UConn. Do you think that UConn listens to U.S. Senator Chris Murphy's pleads to not join the Big 12?
I mean,
and does that change? Does that give Memphis hope from a basketball side? If their UConn basketball queen isn't going to come, is Memphis the next option?
I mean, I think if you're UConn and you have a real shot to go to the Big 12, like, I don't know what the Big East Conference, what they're paying out in basketball, but isn't their football independent?
Yeah.
Like, how much money are you making off any games? Like, it just financially, it makes dramatically more sense to go to the Big 12 if they want you to join. I don't care what a senator is telling me. Like, was it going to stop donating money for some odd reason?
Maybe.
Because I'm going to a better conference? That's fine, unless he's donating $12 million or some arbitrary, extremely large number. I don't think it really matters, right?
It feels like the coast to coast is dead.
Yeah.
For now.
Yormark has said some wild stuff.
He has said everything under the sun. I don't even know what to believe anymore.
Yeah. So another thing he said about realignment. So this all happened on like the 12th or 13th. It was in between our two recordings, so we couldn't fully talk about it on the last episode. But it didn't really point us in either direction. So he said, we have a plan for expansion. I'm not really going to address it today. Hopefully we can execute that plan sooner rather than later. And then he later said, talking about non-Power 5 teams, if they create value and align good with our values and goals, that's a conversation worth having. And so it's like, oh, okay, where are we going with this? Like, are you interested in a Power 5 or not? Like, is it going to be Colorado and Memphis? Like,
it sounds like he's open to anything. Sure. I wouldn't hate Colorado and Memphis.
No, of course we want to hit it because we're Memphis, right? But you have to think of it like there's totally a scenario where Arizona's caught up in their feelings. Like, hey, we've always been a Pac-12 team. So, like, what are we talking about here? Like, I don't know if we're ready to leave. My girl, Arizona State, is not confident she wants to leave.
We're going to
What's
stay
going
and
on?
party a little longer.
Exactly. They just want to hang out in the sun and just hang and party with Gronk. Forks up. Whatever happens out there in Arizona.
Forks
Giving
up,
nods
stay
to
in the
both schools.
Pac-12.
Yeah, so bear down in the Pac-12, whatever. I can
Well,
totally see a scenario where Colorado and then Memphis. I don't think it's likely just due to the fact that that seems like you really have to have Arizona being foolish, but here's to hoping, right?
yeah. He also mentioned last week during those media days that they are definitely looking to stay at least at 14,
Mhm.
but he is a believer in strength in numbers. So if there are 2 added, say come the fall, I don't think by any means that means that they're done. I think that's just another wave in the multiple waves that are coming.
Sure. And what worries me when you start talking about adding 4 teams, I guess, total to that is you would think more teams is going to equate to a higher chance for Memphis. And like mathematically, that's probably true. But also, I mean, it's definitely true. It worries me because I think that Arizona, or excuse me, that Washington and Oregon are completely options out there. Like I'm sure the pack or the Big Ten would rather have Oregon and Washington to kind of pair alongside UCLA and USC, but you know, it's going to get into a situation where it's just like who's going to steal who from whom, and then it gets into a wild world. And hopefully,
At the
Memphis is already
at
a
the
part
end
of
of
it.
the day, when all of the rumble settles from conference realignment, TJ, are you of the belief that there will be 4 mega conferences, or do you think it will be 2, the Big Ten, the SEC, and then everyone else?
What do you mean by mega conference? Because that may change my answer.
I'm just saying 4 that have like 30 teams apiece. Or do you think it's going
I
to be
mean,
2 where it's the SEC and the Big Ten and they have 20 to 25 apiece and everybody else is on their own?
yeah, I think that's the general idea is that the SEC and the Big Ten are just going to keep building and kind of build out their own ridiculous um, roster of teams, and they're going to start going to networks and saying, "Hey, just talk to us too." And that I've talked about this before. Like, there's totally a chance for those 2 conferences just say, "I don't need to be a part of the NCAA. Like, we'll just be our own super college football
Governing
network."
body. Yeah.
Exactly. Like they just become their own thing, and then you have this situation where everyone else is kind of left out into the middle of nowhere. And it sounds wild. It's almost like a dystopian college football future type of situation, but I could totally see it.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
can't
imagine,
wait to look back at this in like 5, 6 years and see what we were talking about and what ended up happening and
I
where
mean,
Memphis falls in all of it.
name if I said name the top 15 brands in college football, I'm just throwing out a random number. You're gonna tell me pretty much half the teams, more than half the teams in the SEC, and more than half the teams in the Big Ten, and then you're gonna get to like maybe some Big 12 kind of sprinkled in there, and
Maybe an
maybe depending on
ACC
where
team.
Oregon, yeah, like some ACC, kind of depends where everything is. Like Florida State's a hot name. Where are they gonna fall?
Yeah. Shout
It's
out
wild,
Norvell.
man. Shout out to Norvell. Thanks for that
Yeah,
game.
it'll be interesting to see. Oh, that's next year. I'm real excited. Might have to make that a beach trip and then journey on over to old Tallahassee.
Ooh.
It'll be interesting to see where we end up. I think by the fall we should have some knowledge of what's going on. Hopefully, Yormark said it. They've got a plan and they hope to execute it sooner rather than later. So here's to hoping Memphis is a part of that plan.